Hey everyone, this is Car RayRob, where I'm Ray,
And I'm Rob.
and welcome to our podcast, Say Hello to My Little Film.
Hey there, it'll be just a little while till Ray and Rob spit their spittle. Come on, check out of the hospital. So grab some of your best peanut brittle. This will be a darn good transmittal. And say hello to my little film.
All right, guys, we are here for our last episode of 2024. We're days away from 2025, but we have our wrap-up show, Rob.
I can't even believe it. I cannot believe we have made it through our first season of Say Hello to My Little Film. And I guess technically Hello Movie's my old friend.
Absolutely. We deserve a little pat on the back, I think.
Everybody, round of applause.
All right, Rob, well, we set a goal at the beginning of this year to make it through this 2024. We gave ourselves 2 podcasts a month with Say Hello to My Little Film. We added Hello Movies.
Yeah. Later, much
later. We've only done 3 of those, but we're adding to our workload.
Exactly.
I had fun. What about you?
Yeah, no, I think it was great. I mean, I think, kind of reevaluating this format, coming from what we used to do on the old YouTube show, just the trailer reactions and some reviews and stuff like that. That was fun. I enjoyed doing that. I will say I enjoy only having to edit audio.
Right.
And not video as well, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, I imagine that's way easier. And I don't have to help with that, so I really enjoy that too.
Exactly. You've always enjoyed it, you freeloader.
Yes. Hey, I'm the brawn. You're the editor.
Oh, whoa, man.
Yeah.
Low blow.
Sorry.
Blow. But at least people don't have to see how badly we're aging.
That's true. They don't need to see like my bald head every week. Like that's not. I have a head that's made for podcasting.
I don't have to worry about that.
You have plenty of hair, that's for sure. So, but yeah, I think it's been interesting. I think we have found our voices better.
I think so.
I don't think we're not finished products by any stretch. I think,
No.
but I think we're getting there. I'm having a lot more fun doing it. Not that I wasn't having fun at the beginning, but I just feel more confident, I guess, about what we're kind of doing and the mission.
Definitely.
I feel confident in what we're doing.
Definitely, and I think next year's going to be great. We'll have another announcement to make before the end of this podcast, but you know what? I'm going to tease everybody a little bit. I am not going to make it now.
No.
So you have to wait.
No, yes, you have to wait. What we will give you now is kind of I thought would be really fun for this episode is we're doing our top 10 list.
Exactly. That's why everybody's tuning in, I know.
Yeah, kind of a year in review basically for this show. So I have ranked the movies that Rob has presented to me, because if you remember the format to Say Hello to My Little Film, Rob has presented me 12 movies this year that I had never seen that he loves. I did the same to him, presented him 12 movies that he had never seen that I love, and we're going to rank them. I'm going to rank my 5 favorite movies that Rob introduced me to this year.
Absolutely. And together, that will be a top 10.
5 plus 5
plus 5
is 10.
You're a math
you're
teacher,
right.
so you know.
You are right.
But so I'm gonna say this was difficult.
I'm glad. That's good. I hope in a good way. I hope like they all sucked. I'm not sure which one sucked more.
Exactly. And to be honest, I'm not even sure the order that I'm going to say. I think I'm just going to say it on the spot. I know what my 5 are, but the order I think is a little...
I was surprised when I made my top 10 list that some weren't, or my top 5 list that some weren't in it. I was like, oh. Yeah. And then I thought about it. I'm like, I don't know. It's hard to move it out. So, you like things for different reasons.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I think I'll have a couple of honorable mentions. I think at the end, so we can circle back to those in the end.
I think I'll want to.
But but I think ultimately I was able to get it to 5, and we're going to do it in a 5-5 each 5 4-4 3-3 2-2 1-1 format, so that we stay on the same level for each of us.
I think that's cool.
And so we're not going to keep anybody waiting any longer. I think it's time for one last. Ray, what do you got?
What do you got? What do you got?
Number 5.
All right, Rob, my number 5 movie is Harold and Maude.
Harold and Maude. Oh, that's awesome.
I think that was the second movie you presented to me this year. way back in February.
Man, okay.
Yeah, so going back to the beginning of the Begee.
Right.
Well,
Maud really does steal people's hearts, so I'm not surprised.
She stole mine.
Yeah.
Her. I don't know. How'd you define what she is?
The
It was
manic pixie
the
queen.
manic pixie queen. That was the
Manic
quote you
pixie
used.
queen.
Is so endearing. Especially for an 80-year-old woman,
Yep.
or however old she was. I really want to go back and rewatch it.
Which is a sign of a good movie.
Absolutely. If anybody hasn't seen it, go back and rewatch it. Go back and watch the podcast we did. We're not going to say that 10 times, but you should. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with the movie. It's a great, very unique love story. I don't know if you see a lot of movies try to copy the format.
Definitely.
It's uniquely its own.
I
love that about it.
I also had a little back and forth on social media on Blue Sky, where you can follow us.
Yes.
With another podcast that we were talking about the opening of how great of an opening Harold and Maude is, because they did a whole episode about opening sequences.
Smart.
And we
That's a great one to pick.
We talked about Harold and Maude a little bit back and forth. So that I'm glad to see you appreciated this movie as much as I did.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised it made my top 10, but or my top 5. But when I kept looking back and listening, like, yeah, I really liked that movie.
Yep.
And so it is. So
I can't blame you.
That's it.
I can't blame you.
All right, Rob, your turn.
All right, for number 5, I'm gonna come in with Rams.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I really love Rams.
Cool.
Yeah, the chemistry between the two brothers was just absolutely fantastic. Sam Neill is so good, and I'm blanking on his brother's name. It's gonna bug me, but maybe it'll come to me as we're talking. But yeah, it was so good, and I loved the setting. You know, obviously the whole New Zealand sheep farmer vibe, the outback. It was a really great movie. I
Michael Catan.
Michael Catan, thank you. I just found the whole thing very endearing. I thought, the trials and tribulations of sibling rivalry and all of that, and like sometimes how that can come not from nothing, because obviously it's not like it was from nothing,
right?
But it clearly. It made for a very compelling story that I love.
Yeah,
I fell in love with.
Kind of shows how you can let stubbornness win over love sometimes, blindly, and it takes a great effort to overcome stubbornness, but it's usually worth it in the end.
Definitely.
To kind of let those things go, and Rams does a great job of showing that.
Absolutely. Number 4.
All right, number 4 for me is one that was pretty recent.
Oh,
Bound.
I
love Bound.
Yeah, how can you not? Exactly. I'm going to say that about every one of these movies. How can you not?
I know, the Wachowskis, like, this movie shot up the rankings of...
It's your favorite Wachowski movie now, isn't it?
I have to maybe go back. Matrix 1 probably still is, but this is probably a solid number 2.
Yeah.
I mean,
at the very least.
Yeah.
It still might be my number 1, but it's a solid 2.
Yeah, and that's not an insult to the movie at all. Like,
not at all.
It's high up here on my list. Again, unique story. Kind of had you guessing on how it was going to go. The way it dealt with trust, you really weren't sure who to trust when.
Yep.
The way it made you like some characters at the beginning, but not at the end. I love those kind of twists, because I love getting attached to characters. And when you rip it away from me, when you do it well, it's really rewarding.
Yeah, Jennifer Tilly, Gina Gershon did a great job of kind of like you're talking about with trust. Like, is somebody going to turn on somebody at some point? You were on the edge of your seat, waiting, just believing that could possibly happen, hoping it wouldn't, and then such a great ending.
Great little thriller there. Loved it.
Absolutely.
What about you? Number 4.
All right, my number 4. I gotta do it. All right, another recent one. In fact, very recent. Death of Stalin.
Oh, really? That high on the list?
Yeah, number 4
very
is
cool.
gonna be Death of Stalin.
You sure we don't have any recency bias there? Tell me what you love about it.
I mean, it's possible. It's the last thing I saw, so clearly it's my favorite. But no, I don't think that. For being a political satire, which I do enjoy, I do love. I even with the tumultuous years we talked about during that episode, I think that Death of Stalin really hits that tone perfectly of a Doctor Strangelove level political satire. In the Loop, there's really great political satires, and it was the biting and the wit. The performances were fantastic, whether it was Buscemi or Michael Palin or Jeffrey Tambor. Everybody was just firing on all cylinders in this movie. Paddy Considine for the
scene stealer.
10 minutes he's probably in the movie. So good. I thought it was written well, directed well. I'd go back and watch it again. I've already actually probably recommended it to at least one or two people
Very
since we
cool.
recorded that episode.
Number 3.
All right, Rob. Well, I called you out for recency bias, but I'm gonna have to put that tag on myself as well because I'm going with The Silent Partner.
Ah, you hypocrite!
Number 3.
I can't blame you though.
I loved it. I absolutely loved Silent Partner. Elliot Gould and Chris Plummer were awesome. Chris Plummer, I'm having consistent nightmares of seeing him peeking through that little like mail slot in Elliot Gould's apartment.
Yeah.
Like I said, this silent partnership that they had with each other. Like, I kind of said in the podcast, the movie had me guessing about exactly what was going on. Never could quite figure out, how it was going to get itself wrapped up and concluded. I love that about a movie. I think that's hard to do. I'm not trying to call myself some kind of Sherlock Holmes over here, but I think the movie was just written really well. It was really good. I really liked it.
Yeah, it's got crackerjack timing. I think the whole thing is just wound tight, but in like the best ways possible. They really had cultivated some great images. We've talked about the scene with the mailbox flap, with Christopher Plummer's eyes like in the mailbox flap. It still sticks with you. Like you said, you just can't get that image out of your head. And I think, I can't blame you. As I said, with all of these, I can't blame you. But yeah, The Silent Partner, great pick, great movie.
I don't know if your number 3 can be better than my number 3, but what do you?
Well, you recommended it, so in your mind it might be. But we will see. This one, okay. So this is when things get a little hairy because in my mind I got these top 3 movies, and it's like, which ones are going to be? All of these movies are very close. I'm going to say that all of these movies are very, very close. This one probably could be number 2, but it's going to be number 3, and that's going to be What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, What We Do in the Shadows. That's kind of like that was the first movie I ever presented to you.
It was way back when you presented me What We Do in the Shadows, and yeah, I mean it's such a great jumping off point. Obviously as we said, we were both fans of the show, and that was my first experience with the movie. I've actually rewatched it since then.
Very cool.
We recommended it to people. I've rewatched it. It's such a fun movie. I mean, Taika is just such a singular mind.
Yeah.
And I think, Jermaine Clement is also just so
very underrated,
so
I think.
good. He is. He really is. And I think What We Do in the Shadows is another example of how you can make so much with what feels like so little.
Yeah.
That mockumentary style of filmmaking.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, if you kind of think about like our lists here, you got the movie that kind of launched Taika in a way. You got the movie that kind of launched the Wachowskis. It's interesting that those kind of launching point movies were so good that they've made our list to recommend originally, and then they've come back at the end of the year as top favorites amongst all of our recommendations. I think that's pretty cool.
No, it's a great point. And sometimes you find when a director strikes it big on a movie, and then you go back to the movies that they made before they made whatever made them a star, if you will. Like you can see those DNA tracking points of what made the movie that got them famous so good.
Right.
And I think for both of those movies, with Bound and with What We Do in the Shadows, you totally see that. The humor, the Taika branded humor, is just so prevalent in What We Do in the Shadows. And like I said, they just do so much with so little, and something that, and to be fair, a genre that's completely oversaturated.
Absolutely.
Vampires. You find and even
mockumentaries.
Ground, right. Even to find new ground is really commendable.
Yeah. So hey, sneak peek, there might be some Taika in season 2.
Oh, so if you're sticking around now, you need to stick with us next year, because I think Ray's got something up his sleeve.
Number 2.
All right, Rob, I'm fairly convinced you know what my top 2 are. I mean, just throughout the year.
I know nothing.
Okay. Well, I mean, throughout the year, I know for sure you know my top 1. I have not been able to stop gushing about it for 6 months. So,
I know exactly what your number 1 is.
Yeah. So, but number 2, I don't think it's going to shock you. I'm taking you back to 1997. Gattaca.
There it is.
How did I not see this movie originally? I mean, when I was in high school, I was primed to watch this movie. I don't know how I miss it. I don't know how I've missed it the 20 years since.
Yep. This is
Makes
what
no
this is why I don't know
sense.
what would you do without me? That's all I'm going
Well,
to
I
say.
wouldn't have seen Gattaca.
Exactly.
I
You wouldn't have seen Gattaca.
Yeah, Ethan Hawke, Uma Thurman, Jude Law, just absolutely great. Really smart psychological thriller type movie.
Yeah.
Again, a movie that keeps you guessing. You're not sure about who's committed murders, what everything here is what it's all leading up to, or how they got away with it. It's really cool because it's sci-fi, so you're able to use you can make an interesting thriller because they're set in this world that's not based in like realities, like these like this superb human being type culture, right? You've created your own reality, and you can kind of like really make it tough for the audience to peg down where you're going to go. So just really smartly constructed, a lot of fun. I still like remember seeing Ethan Hawke try to cross the street without his contacts in, and just being like, oh my God, this is stressful. And so again, I always kind of say, I love when movies give me the feels, and this one, it does it in spades.
Definitely. And I think it also fits into that 90s noir genre. I mean, I really do think that's kind of an underrated era of noir is the 90s. 90s can get a lot of crap for various reasons, but even in the film and, obviously various other areas, but
90s are coming back.
Oh, I mean, everything's cyclical.
Yes.
Everything's cyclical. But I think the 90s noir, there is just a treasure trove of stuff in there, and Gattaca is definitely high on that list.
Absolutely. That was my number 2 favorite recommendation from you this year. What's your number 2 favorite recommendation from me?
So, I think my number 1 is pretty set. So, my number 2, which again kind of went back and forth with what we do in the shadows, but I ended up kind of going with this one because I felt was again really original and just super fun and kind of came out of nowhere for me, and that is One Cut of the Dead.
Yes.
That movie just knocked me on my butt. Because it was so good.
Yes, absolutely. You got it. Remember, I kind of warned you about those first 37 minutes, but you liked the first 37 minutes.
I love the first 37. I didn't care if they were bad or not. I was having a ball. But that's what's so great. It was kind of a movie about making movies. Yeah. But I'm telling you, the through line story of the father and the daughter was just so compelling and so good. And I really just like I said, kind of having that 1-2 punch of that first 37 minutes, not really knowing what is this movie doing, and then all of a sudden it just becomes this whole other thing. And as I said with what we do in the shadows, kind of the same deal. A genre that is so oversaturated.
Yeah,
zombie movies are just so oversaturated. So you kind of take this zombie movie genre, but kind of turn it on its head, and but really kind of hang it up, if you will, like on the scaffolding of this father-daughter relationship. It just, really knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, I think the movie does a great job. Like you said, it's a movie about making movies, and it shows how hard it is to even produce something that's technically, air quotes, bad.
Right.
How much work goes into it. And, the movie it does so many things. Because it's doing that while doing a oneer, and still, like, in the second half, giving all these characters these mini arcs that kind of makes rewarding, it makes your time watching these little side characters rewarding. To do so much is really like an accomplishment. So I'm really glad I got to introduce that to you.
Well, absolutely. And like you said, when a movie takes such care of the supporting cast, because a lot of times so much focus is just on your protagonist, you're kind of like, okay, well, if somebody, has a complete arc, fine. If they don't, whatever, but they really did have the wherewithal to it. I'm going to say take half a movie, because really that first 37 minutes, they do kind of lay a little bit of the groundwork in there, but really the hard work is in that second half of the movie.
Yes,
so to really take the half of a movie and give so many compelling characters to us is just, again, an accomplishment that really just, it can't be spoken of highly enough. Well, we're almost to the big unveiling. And before we do that, I'm going to pump the brakes just a hair, because I did want to, I mentioned earlier, I wanted to give an honorable mention. So I want to give an honorable mention to at least one movie before we do my number 1, your number 1. And I feel like you said you may want to do the same.
I do. I definitely do.
Okay. So before we do that, I'm going to say I really wanted to give a shout out recommendation, honorable mention to Breaking Away.
Yeah, I love
It was really close to being my number 5. It was really between Breaking Away and Rams.
Yeah.
I went back and forth, but again, I just ended up going with Rams just because I think I could have gone either way.
Right,
To be perfectly
yeah.
honest,
Well,
I
that's
could have
good.
gone either way. But I ended up going with Rams. I love Sam Neill. I love that. But Breaking Away was great. You know, this group of friends, the Cutters, were just
Yeah.
such. It was such a joy to watch. You know, watch them struggle in this class struggle that they were, you know, trying to fight their way out of. You know, young Dennis Quaid, Jackie Earle Haley. Just such a great cast, and I wanted to mention that movie because I didn't want it to just go by without me saying I did love that movie.
Cool.
And it was so close to making my top 5, but Rams just squeaked it out by photo finish.
Yeah.
Photo finish, if you will.
Absolutely. And when I think of that movie, I think of Dennis Christopher and his dad when they had that conversation about, you're not a cutter.
Yep.
You're not a cutter. I'm a cutter.
Yep.
Just that father-son relationship, how that grew throughout the movie. That I definitely have the feels for that movie. So I'm glad that even though it didn't make your top 5, it was in your honorable mentions.
It was close.
Yeah. I had a really tough time. I honestly had a tough time with my 5 through 8.
Okay.
I was they're really, really close for me. I felt bad leaving some movies out, but again, we're not ranking all of the movies.
Right,
It's
exactly.
not really a top. It's just a list. But so I'm still struggling right now to officially say my honorable mention. But I wanted to say that I wanted to give a shout out to the pilot. The very first episode we did,
Babysitter.
the babysitter, the baby episode, the babysitter.
Exactly.
I just thought that was really fun because you presented a movie to me that for a genre I don't like.
Yep.
I don't like slasher movies.
Yep.
I don't like horror movies. And so the fact that you showed me that to start this thing.
Yep. Had to throw down the gauntlet from the beginning.
Yeah. But you picked such a fun one. Like I said, it set up all of its kills. It was really smart, which I sometimes just don't think these movies are enough of.
Yeah.
Not to crap on horror, because I actually think horror directors try harder than a lot of others at times. But I just thought it was really smart. It had enough balance of fun in there where it just kept me engaged, and it made it an enjoyable experience, and it launched the podcast. It made me want us to keep doing this. So
Definitely.
Had to give the babysitter a call out.
That's awesome. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. I think we talked about it in October. I rewatched it again in October. It's such a good movie. It's such a fun rewatch. Definitely check that out if you haven't. Plus our episode. But
Absolutely.
The Babysitter is such a fun movie, and I'm really glad that I was able to get you out of your dislike of horror, even if it was just for a moment.
Number 1.
All right, Rob. I know you already know what my number 1 is, but the audience doesn't, because I've gushed over this movie too many times.
Pink Flamingos, everybody. It's Pink Flamingos. I'm telling everybody right now. Ray's number 1 movie is Pink Flamingos.
No.
No?
Womp womp.
I am shocked.
You are not shocked.
I'm shocked.
No, I did not like Pink Flamingos.
I am shocked and appalled.
No, my number 1 movie. No, Pink Flamingos is 12. So this is
I don't buy
the
that.
other end of the
He
spectrum.
just wants everybody to think that.
My number 1 movie is Joint Security Area, JSA.
Not shocked by that at all.
This is a South Korean masterpiece. This movie is absolutely great. The way they do flashbacks and the development of friendships, and just the showing how these two people on the other side of the border of Korea, how they're so different but so similar. How it just kind of shows, no matter how different we think we are, or we're told that we are, that we're all that we are just human, and we're all relatable. If we would just not let people blind us and make us think we're so different, and that our views are so far apart, that we could actually really enjoy each other's company. I love that in this day and age. I love that about this movie.
Absolutely. Park Chan-wook really crafted a compelling story with a group of really likable characters.
Absolutely.
I mean, North Koreans, South Koreans, they were all, it didn't matter what side of the demarcation line they were on, they were just joyous characters. And when they finally come together as friends, that time that they spend together in that little hut, is just so good.
Very.
Every little moment is just so good.
Yeah. And there is that bomb under the table where you know what happened was
Right.
very bad, and you're like,
Exactly.
how do we get to that point? And when that point happens, you're hooked as a movie viewer, because you're just like, no, stop, and it can't stop. It's a train that can't stop going because you know it already happened. It's excellent viewing experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm really glad you enjoyed
Loved
it because I know you don't like subtitle movies. So.
I like it. I'm fine with
kidding.
subtitles, especially if it's dubbed.
That was a joke.
Yeah.
It was a callback joke to you telling me that I don't like them. But anyway, so I guess it's time for me to announce my number one movie.
Yep.
And do you think you know what it is?
Yep.
You think you know? You're pretty sure.
Yep.
My number one recommendation from Ray in 2024 was Brian and Charles.
I knew it.
I think this was pretty much. This may have been my number one from the moment I watched it.
Yeah.
I don't like. Not that no other movie that you have recommended to me this year has been good. Obviously, it's good. I have a whole top 5, but Brian and Charles.
It was your heart stealer.
It was a heart stealer.
Yeah.
It really it made me want to go to Honolulu Bloop
Yes.
so badly.
Brian.
I can't say anybody's name which is Brian.
Yeah.
Without immediately thinking Brian.
Yeah, I feel bad for your wife the amount of time she's heard us say Brian.
Right, because we know people named Brian, and every time we talk about people named Brian, Brian.
Right.
And it's so yeah. This is a movie that has stuck with me ever since I watched it, and yeah, the David Earl was such an amazing actor in this movie.
Yeah.
Takes you on a journey with a character that you feel so genuinely for.
Absolutely.
And this need to connect, and so he builds this robot, and Charles is such a compelling character even on its own, and it's a movie that for me was great because it overcame that quirky production value.
Yep.
That a lot of times these movies don't. It's
Right.
like, oh well, I have this really quirky idea for a visual, and that's just
a robot
what it
with a
is.
wash machine body.
Right, and it's like, okay, well, that's fun, I guess, but this is a movie that overcomes all of that, gives you a genuine heart-wrenching story.
Yeah.
And I think, kind of again, going back to that mockumentary we kind of talked about,
Yep.
style-esque of this movie, which we, go back
Yeah.
and watch our episode because we have some very interesting, or I do, I
Yeah.
have some very interesting ideas about that. But yeah, I think Brian and Charles, like I said, once I watched it, I couldn't get out of my head. And so when it came down to the top 5, I just don't know if there was another movie that
ran away with it.
It ran away with it that was going to be number one.
I'm
It's
glad-
Brian and Charles.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I know that that was one good thing about this podcast is you've been recommending movies to me forever that I was probably just never going to get around to. I know I've been recommending Brian and Charles to you for a while, and you just probably never going to get around to it. But the podcast made us. It forced us watch some of these and introduce us to it. And one thing I just want to say about Brian and Charles real quick is I love it's so simple. It's probably a movie that costs nothing to make.
Right.
It's not trying to trick you. It's just the recipe is we're going to introduce to you characters that you're going to fall in love with, and you're just going to want to experience life with them for an hour and a half. I just think that it's just I don't know, it's just such a good example that it doesn't have to be complicated or crazy, or the plot doesn't have to, always have to be such a head scratcher. Just give us characters that we really love.
Yeah.
And you're going to go a long way.
Absolutely. Well, like I said, and with this kind of comedy, dramedy, genre that, I think has been prevalent for a long time. This idea of this quirky hook.
Yeah.
It doesn't, it keeps a lot of people away because they see so many trailers like this where it's like, oh, I don't know, this looks like just some kind of twee garbage that, I've seen 100 times before. It's just,
it's not going to stand out.
No, not going to stand out. But give Brian and Charles that chance, and it is going to hook you every time. Well, that was our top 10 list for 2024. But you know what? This podcast is going to keep chugging on.
Absolutely. We got season 2 planned.
We are moving into season 2. This has been a great year. But we did want to let everybody know there's going to be some changes in 2025.
Some release
I'm going to find a new co-host.
Hey now.
Hey now. Oh man, this is no longer going to be Car RayRob. This is going to be Car whoever Rob, because I'm going to find somebody else. No, I'm kidding. I could never, ever, ever do this without Ray. I would never want to do this without Ray.
No, you wouldn't be allowed to, because I have naming rights, and I would sue you for everything you're worth.
Oh boy. Well, I've got like $10 on me right now. So if that's good enough, then we'll call it good and go our separate ways. No. We are not going to be doing that because we're having too much fun. But one thing we did want to talk about is our release schedule is going to change a little bit next year.
Yeah, we are planning on, we've already said we've introduced Hello Movies, my old friend.
Exactly.
So we've got to make sure we have a consistent release schedule with that.
Right.
We
do bi-weekly for this as well as every 2 weeks.
Right. So that's 3 podcasts a month.
Right.
And there's usually 4 weeks in a month.
That's
right?
true. That's true. Maybe it's time we make the big announcement.
Boom, boom, boom.
Next year in 2025, Car RayRob will be piloting its 3rd podcast.
Yes.
A copy of a copy.
Yes, where we're going to watch some of our favorite remakes of, I don't want to say necessarily classic films, but remakes of well-known films, and we're going to compare them.
Yep. So we're going to watch originals and remakes, and we're going to see differences, similarities, which one's better, which
Pros
one's
and
worse.
cons.
Maybe they both suck. I don't know. We're going to find out. Because I think we've got someone on our list that Ray's never seen either one.
Yeah, we're not going to be tied down to
Nope.
Having to have watched it or anything like that. It's just remakes.
Exactly. And, so we're
Study
really
that format.
excited for that. So we're going to that will be coming in the first quarter of 2025. So everybody keep on the lookout for that. So that means that from here on out, Say Hello to My Little Film will be on the 1st and 3rd weeks of the month.
Yep.
The 4th week of the month will be Hello Movies, My Old Friend, which
Yep.
we have enjoyed doing and we will enjoy continuing. And then the 2nd week of the month will now be a copy of a copy.
Wow, that's a lot of work. Are we sure we're ready to commit to that?
Well, I'm doing all the work. You're just sitting on the couch.
I'm just being funny and watching movies. Yeah, I can do that. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. You just show up, talking to a microphone for a little bit, and walk away. That's it.
Hey, I drove here. Give me a break.
All right. Yeah, traffic sucks, so I'll give you that much. But yeah, so we want to thank every one of you who has even taken a moment of their time to listen to any one of our podcasts. We know that is not something that is an unrenewable resource.
Right.
Is time. Time is an unrenewable resource. So we want to thank every single one of you who has taken any amount of yours and spent it with us.
Yes, you guys are laying the groundwork for us as we eventually will take off someday, and you guys are the ones who set the groundwork. So we're really, really appreciative of all that kind of support.
Yep, you've gotten on the ground floor of something that I think is going to be really, really great, and we can't wait to take this journey with all of you. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. So we're gonna wrap up this year in review. But before we do that, we have to ask everybody who's gone on this ride with us this far one last time in 2024 to please take the time to like the podcast, subscribe to the podcast. Feel free to reach out to the podcast. You can email us at carrayrob@gmail.com. You can leave us a 5-star review, because if you write us a 5-star review, we will read it live on air someday.
That might be our New Year's resolution for 2025.
Absolutely. We'll start doing that. And then you can follow us on Blue Sky.
Blue Sky at Car RayRob. We would love if there is a comment section on whatever platform you're on. By all means, leave a comment. Let us know what your top 5, top 10, however you want to do it.
Rank as many as you want.
Yeah, since you've got all 24 episodes to choose from, why don't you do a top 10? Give us a top 10 list of what your favorite movies that you have watched through our podcast, maybe discovered for the first time. We would love to see that, because we just take pleasure in the fact that we have been able to possibly introduce so many great movies to our listening audience. Sure. As we said, this is the end of 2024, but you know what? Next week is 2025.
It's right around the corner.
Exactly. So with that, we are going to have a brand new season of Say Hello to My Little Film. So next Monday, bam, be back here, because we will have our first episode of season 2 of Say Hello to My Little Film.
I
And
can't
you are
wait.
not going to want to miss that. It's going to be my episode. I'm going to be kicking off the new year. I've got a great movie that I think Ray is going to love. or maybe hate. We'll find out.
Hopefully it holds up as well as The Babysitter did.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Well, we'll see at the end of the year. I'm going to be very curious to see where this movie ends up on your top 5. But you're not going to want to miss that. So until then, one last time for 2024, this is Car RayRob.
Where I'm Ray.
And I'm Rob. And remember, be defined by the films you love, not the ones you hate.
Hey there, it'll be just a little while till Ray and Rob spit their spittle. Come on, check out of the hospital. So grab some of your best peanut brittle. This will be a darn good transmittal. And say hello to my little film.
While season 1 was a big hit, we are going to keep on going into season 2. So I'm going to give everybody a little stinger of what's coming next week on Say Hello to My Little Film, because it'll be back to my episode, first episode of 2025, and I am very excited to share with Ray the Jim Jarmusch neo-noir classic Down by Law. It is a great movie. It stars John Laurie, Tom Waits, Roberto Benigni. It is a stellar movie. I've seen it multiple times, one of my favorite films. I am really excited to share it with Ray, with all of you. I think you're all really going to like it. I think he's going to like it. You're not going to want to miss it. Well, we'll see you in the new year.